module, you will learn about the process of fertilization in flowering plants. Fertilization in flowering plant is defined as the fusion of male gamete carried by pollens with a female gamete present in the ovule to form a diploid zygote which later develops into an embryo. It may be interesting to learn that the fertilization in plants is known as double fertilization, as two fusions occur in the embryo sac instead of one. These fusions are called syngamy and triple fusion. On reaching the stigma, the pollen grain containing two nuclei germinates to produce the pollen tube. The pollen tube grows down into the style, deriving nutrition from it. The generative nucleus and the vegetative nucleus of the pollen grain move to the lower end of the pollen tube. Here the generative nucleus divides mitotically into two male gametes or sperms. The vegetative or tube nucleus of pollen grain is responsible for the growth of pollen tube. The vegetative nucleus degenerates after reaching the ovule. The pollen tube at this stage, with a vegetative nucleus and two male gametes, grows down into the ovary. The entry of the pollen tube into the ovule through the mycopyle, chalaza, or integuments is known as porogamy, chalazogamy, and mesogamy respectively. Porogamy is the most common out of these. After the pollen tube enters the ovule, it discharges the two male gametes it carries into the synergids of the embryo sac. This causes the synergid cells to rupture, thus leading to the fusion of a male gamete with an egg nuclei or an oosphere. Due to this fusion, a diploid zygote is formed, which gives rise to an embryo. This process is known as generative fertilization or syngamy. After the double fertilization, the ovary starts to swell and develops into a fruit with seeds. In this module, you learned that fertilization in flowering plants is the process of fusion of the male and the female gamete. Fertilization in plants is known as double fertilization, as two fusions, syngamy and triple fusion, occur. The compatible pollen grains produce a pollen tube. After reaching the ovary, the pollen tube enters the ovule via micropyle, chalaza, or integuments. After entering the ovule, the pollen tube enters the synergids and ruptures it. The pollen tube releases two male gametes in the synergids. One of the male gametes fuses with the egg nuclei to form a diploid zygote. This process of fertilization is known as syngamy. Another male gamete moves towards the central cell and fertilizes with two polar nuclei. This process of fertilization is known as the triple fusion.